Welcome to Timber&Terra. I'm Glenn, and finally going to work on this section of road, this little section here, an experiment with a corduroy road. I've talked about it several times in the past on my videos, but now the time has come. I'll give you my thoughts on this. I have done some thinking and a little bit of research on corduroy roads. And probably one of the most informative ones I watched was actually, I think it's probably Army Corps of Engineers put it out during World War II, which was how to build corduroy roads in Europe where they needed to bring equipment over soft ground. And how they did it was they put larger timbers down, almost like upside down railroad tracks, basically along this way, and then put the smaller rounds or poles this way. So really it's just sort of an upside down railroad track. And the poles this way, as I understand it, or prevent, when you go over with wheeled vehicles, to prevent the wheels from doing this and dislodging all the poles that go crossways. So if I just left it crossways in this wet stuff, it might do that. So I think I'm going to do that. So take some larger ones and put them here basically in the tracks that I have, almost the little streams that you see with the water. So where the tractor sits now is a section of road that goes up there that I actually put fabric and brought in some gravel. So that is a nice road, but as soon as you step off here, basically where the water starts is where that bit of gravel and road fabric ends, and we have water and mud. So I've had some comments over the past year or so regarding corduroy roads, suggestions on how to build it. My thoughts are this: a corduroy road should have some benefit. It should save something, and really it's money. Because it doesn't really save in time, because I think this is going to be rather labor intensive. I've saw some videos or read some comments, put a corduroy road down, you take up all this slop, all this the wet topsoil or whatever it is, move it off to the side, then put down your poles, your corduroy road, then put fabric on top, and then bring gravel in. Well, if I'm going to do all that, I just put fabric on top of this and put gravel down. I wouldn't mess with the corduroy road because there'd be no sense in it. So really what this is going to do for me, a couple things actually. One is it's going to eliminate the need for fabric, because I have used fabric in situations just like this and it's worked just fine, but it costs money and you have to bring in gravel to put on top or some other material. And the other thing it will eliminate, hopefully, is my need for any sort of culvert or pipes, because I do have higher ground to the left and it's going to run this way. So what I'm hoping is when I put the corduroy, the wood, the poles on the ground, then it's going to have enough space of water to run through it, for the most part underneath, and then sort of keep the road itself higher and drier. If you get heavy runoff or heavy rain, the water may run across the road, that's fine. But for the most part, hopefully it'll build up some height. And I still may put some material on top of the corduroy afterwards. The other thing has been commented on, and I agree with because it's simply fact, is that the corduroy, the wood in the corduroy will last essentially forever if it's completely buried in something like wet, mud, water, because it doesn't have oxygen, it won't rot. So I suspect that most of this video is going to be rather long and tedious, so I think a lot of it will be time-lapse. I do have my winch here. Primarily I brought the tractor just because it has my stuff, the gas, oil, chainsaws. It has my vise on the front. But I might use the winch if I happen across the larger tree that I can't handle by hand and I want to use it. Then I may use the cable, the winch for that. But most of what I'm going to use are just sort of junk trees, like this one here, which I think is a spruce, but it is tall and skinny. It's got damage there. Doesn't have much of a crown, so this one will come down. So a lot of, mostly fir actually, and some red maple. If there's some misshapen smaller birch, I may take that, but the birch I'd prefer to save for firewood. The red maple is not as good for firewood, so I don't mind using that. And of course the fir is not very good being a softwood. There might be a cedar or two that I'll take down if again it's misshapen or is in a clump and I want to reduce a clump to a single stem, which is what I do elsewhere when I manage my cedars to do that. Well, I got a late start today. Had some other projects to do before I came out here. So it's a start, but very slow one. So this is the corner, so that's why these are so long. But the road itself is going to be about 12 feet wide. So except for that middle one there, these are all going to be a 12 foot. It's pretty deep there. I stepped in there. I don't know if you noticed it on the time lapse, but probably 8 or 10 inches deep. Got the bottom of my coveralls wet, but I did not go over my boots, so glad for that. And if you care, if you question, I do have chainsaw pants underneath my coveralls, so I am practicing safe chainsaw activities here. So we'll pick this up some other day. Decent start, but boy, it's a lot of work being a little human skidder. These red maples, green like this, full of moisture, they're still pretty heavy. But I think it'll go well. I don't have as much fir right around here as I thought. I know I have quite a bit more back there. You can probably see the denser woods. A lot of that's fir poles that are too small to do anything, too old to grow, and too small for anything like timber. Well, it's been several days since we've been out here. We've had some warm weather, some rain, some colder weather, and a little bit of snow, as you can see. So far, what I've done has been in little sort of 2-hour blocks, because that's what I had time available for. Today I have a bit more time. You can see, perhaps, wonder why there's a huge space under there between the ground and the poles. But I think they're sitting on frozen mud. So as soon as, well, it may not be till springtime now, when the mud thaws, or maybe when I ride over it with the tractor, assuming I get to that point, it'll push it down to the ground. I do have a handful of poles that I want to sort of put on this side here as a transition from that road to the more stable gravel that has the road fabric underneath that the tractor's sitting on. And then hopefully it goes faster and I'm just cutting everything 12 foot for the main part of the road rather than this corner. So I do have some poles cut, and we are ready to drag in place. Well, it is the next day, and I got sidetracked. So what I ended up doing, I didn't film it because it wasn't going to be that exciting video footage, was this area in here, all those small evergreens, even that larger one there, are all red spruce, which is one of the species that I'm retaining, managing for in this area of my property. So, and it was just like you can see there, it had a lot more of these red maple that were growing on top of it, sort of suppressing their growth. So what I ended up doing, the larger ones, I cut for firewood. So that's what these are. These are all 16-foot long red maple. They're generally, probably breast height, 6 to 8 inches in diameter. Much bigger than I wanted for the corduroy road, and this is another small pile of firewood as well. So all I ended up generating for corduroy road material is right here. So that'll be what I do right off here is drag those down. The corduroy road is down there. So you can see with some of these spruce that they're not growing a whole lot. They're plenty healthy, and I think they will grow, but that's only like 3.5 inches of growth. That one there is probably 6 inches, a bit more. That one's more. But this canopy now is all open. This was primarily all shaded by these trees that I cut down. You can see one of the stumps right there. So with this extra light now, these hopefully will start taking off and generating more growth, more on the order of, 8 inches and up in height per year. I did take down some junk trees too, like some fir that had been suppressed for their entire life. They were probably 20 years old, but no higher than me, maybe somewhere. So fir has a longevity only about 60, 80 years, maybe 100 years. Red spruce is a much more desirable tree, at least economically. They live for 300 years or so. So I'm dressed a bit different because it's cold today. It looks nice, winter wonderland. But I think it was 11 degrees, and the temperature's not going to change all day, and it's windy. Thankfully, here in the woods, we don't have much of a wind chill, but getting here through the field is a bit of a challenge. In fact, when I drag these down, I'll probably start sweating. So I'm not sure what I'll do for the rest of my time out here today, whether might be a couple more red maple in there that I want to take down. What I want to do is finish this section of corduroy road where the curve is, so I can concentrate further in where it's just the narrow 12-foot wide road. I think that'll go quicker, and I'm hoping that I'll have more material down that way that I don't have to rely on the tops of larger trees for. Well, I got sidetracked again. Got some more firewood. But this corner is finally done, so basically you saw I put these last few in. It's interesting building a road 4 inches at a time. It takes a while. And you can see here, I'm not just laying them next to each other. Occasionally, if there's a crooked one or an open spot, I'll just lay some on top. I'm new to this, so we'll see how it works. Getting back to more silviculture stuff, you can see this is a logging scar. You can see these scrapes. That was from the chain on a skidder. I had a commercial logging job done here. I think it was 12 or 13 years ago. So you can see how much the tree has grown in those 12 or 13 years. This is an example of one of those really nice red spruce. It is probably over 100 years old, I'm guessing. And likely the parent to a lot of these smaller spruce we see popping up all over the place that I'm trying to release, if you will, give more light. So this is a tree I cut down for firewood, a couple there, several up there. So, and there may be some more red maple here that I'll take down as well. That's the hemlock. I'm guessing it's a decent looking tree. It looks it from here. That's the hemlock as well. The top doesn't look the best, so I may take that down. There's one of those small spruce there. These little ones here are fir, which I don't care. They can grow. That's fine, as long as they're not interrupting anything better. So we'll come back again, hopefully on a warmer day, and maybe where I'm not so distracted. So next time we come down here, I will concentrate on taking stuff from down that way and not having to walk across these. It's actually not that bad. They sort of frozen in, so they're relatively stable, but it's not the most level walking surface to avoid, say, twisting an ankle or something. Well, I'm finally back. I really get sidetracked easily, and it's just too inviting for me to cut down some, I guess, weed trees, firewood. But I think now I'm in earnest, want to finish up this little section of corduroy road. So what I just did here, So we came up here this afternoon, was a couple leaning trees here that are actually sort of in the way of this road. If you remember, this section of road is sort of my little shortcut. It's that section of road where I raised it above the native level with some rocks, some muddy rocks. I thought it had dried out enough. I topped it with some gravel, crushed gravel, and it was still really sloppy. But you can see here now it's frozen up nicely. I've driven over it several times, and there's no issues at all. So this road will be fine. But it has been this area, this sort of little island, if you will, that's really gotten my attention. You can see the firewood logs there. They're all 16-footers, covered with snow. So I've opened this up enough so that all these relatively young conifers that you see are all red spruce, which is the species that I want to retain or encourage to grow. Almost everything I took down, with the exception of a couple of junk trees, were red maple. The most recent ones you can see here, which are not covered with snow. So it's a lot more open up there than it was. Trees that I left, like that triplet there of red maple, they're really not in the way of anything. Those trees over there, the sun comes from that direction, although in the summertime it's quite a bit higher. So they'll get a lot more light than they did. Maybe not full sun, but that's fine. Probably in several more years I'll come and cut some more down. So this is where we left things off when I was dragging some of these out from just beyond that little knoll there. I did run the front of the tractor over here, and I figured because these are setting on that sort of frozen humps of mud, that it can be easily dislodged. So I will probably wait before I do much driving on this. Anyhow, so when I was driving around, we've had really cold weather. In fact, probably the coldest, snowiest December I can remember. There's a lot of rhyming words there. So it's been really cold. Most recent days have been in the single digits, several, most recently below zero in the morning, and then in the teens for highs. So basically all I want to do with this first section is from where we left off here, and we're going down to the 12-foot wide road to where my tractor is. So I rode through here, and this is really deep. You can see the scrape marks here. I think that might have been from the winch. But the front tires were almost up to the axle. But I did this a couple days ago, exposed the mud. Now at least the surface of it's frozen. I'm not sure how much of this water is frozen. Probably a couple inches. So same sort of thing, but around here I hopefully will have more readily accessible, 4 to 6 inch poles, which is the diameter I'm looking for. Hopefully more in the way of fir, a little bit lighter to drag than the red maple is. Well, it was prime time, I guess, that this tangled mess got cleaned up a little bit. I still have, these are all just blow down, some rotten trees. It just sort of fell together like pixie sticks. So those worked well for the rails, I guess you call them. Going to the upside down railroad track analogy. This larger one here, which is also 12 feet long, I decided to put at the end because it's so much larger than the other ones that I will likely use. So I didn't want a big bump in the road. So this will sink in, hopefully roughly level with these, and transition from where the corduroy road is to where it's just going to be native soil. So I guess I'm ready now just to bang out the 12-foot pieces. Yeah, this is a slow process. And because I'm combining it with some other, forest cleanup stuff, it has taken a long time. So this log here, you can tell it's been down on the ground for a while. I'm not sure if it blew over and then died, or whether it was dead and then blew over, but quite rotten. So this is not good for a log. I don't use it for firewood. There's just too much volume for too few BTUs. But a couple things. One is I wanted to sort of clean this area up. You can see it's really just a rat's nest of dead trees. The pixie pixie stick thing I mentioned earlier. But if I can get a couple 12-foot lengths out of the top for the road, that's really what I'm after. And if it's not too difficult, I'll do the same with these other two on the small ends. The big ends here, I'm just going to cut up into pieces, let it rest on the ground and rot and be nutrients for the next generation. Well, I'm back out here again. This job has really been very much a piecemeal job. I brought another tool from the arsenal. So the situation is, the corduroy road is way down there. And I've sort of run out of good sized pole material in this area that I can easily drag there by hand. At least comfortably, without wearing myself out. So I started cutting here where there's actually plenty. Mostly fir, so it's lighter weight. It's a good size, at least for this particular road, to match the diameters that I've already set there. Most of it's, on average, say in the center, is probably 3 to 5 inches. So the plan here with the trailer is I'm just going to load these up into the trailer by hand, and then back, whatever that is, 300-400 feet to the road and unload it. So I've done a lot of clearing here, or thinning I should say. You can see the tops of all these trees, again mostly fir. So before I started doing this, if you sort of looked up, all you would see is crowns. There really was very little light. So now for the most part, these crowns of these relatively young fir have light at least on 3 sides of the crown. Now I don't know if these trees are still young enough to respond, to have that release, to have that light now that's available to them. Hard to judge. Looking at the trees that I've cut, can make out. I'm not going to try to count these, I don't have glasses. But these trees are probably, I'd say 30 to 40 years old. Most of them are this size. And the other indication of whether a tree will respond or not, at least the thumb rule I've heard, is about 1/3 of the tree height should be crown. The crown is probably less than 1/3, probably more like 1/4 of the height of the tree. So they may not respond, so this may be for naught, but at least I can get some road material out of it. It is a cold day, that's why I look like this. It was about 14 degrees when I left the house, which isn't bad if there was no wind, but it's breezy, so driving through the field was cold. In here, you have the shelter of the woods, is much better, but you know, you get a breeze occasionally if it comes from the right direction. You'll still have snow blowing in your face, and you have a little bit of a whiteout. Enough complaining. I'll load these up and bring them down there. This is a map of my property. The red line here is the property boundary. So this is where I live. This is the field I drive through, so when I talk about windy conditions, I have to face that in this relatively long drive through the open field, and when I get into the woods, obviously the wind will die down. This section of road here is sort of my main access. It's the one I first made. It's topped with gravel. It's smooth, and nice and easily passable any time of year. It has good drainage, ditches, etc. The area that we're working in now with this first take at a corduroy road is basically right here at this corner up to perhaps about here. So this little section here is what we're working on. When I've got distracted and cut some firewood or done some thinning, that's been in this area here that I sort of call the peninsula. Between this little pond and this road here is where I've taken a lot of the red maples. This is that little shortcut road that I've talked about where I had sort of a muddy mess this fall and summer when I was trying to improve it. I put some drainage in, a drainage there and drainage there because the water flows that away. But it's all frozen up now, as you saw, and it's easily passable. So there's a couple other areas at least one, maybe two on this section of road that is really muddy, and I will try a slightly different method of corduroy road here. But the worst of it by far is sort of just as you make this corner right here. That is the worst of the muddiness, and it's probably 18 inches deep of really soupy mud that I want to see if a corduroy road can work. I do already have drainage. I think I pointed out an 8-inch culvert that goes that way and drains the property in this direction. So this currently the roads are frozen up well. So this is probably the best and probably the only time I've had in the last couple of years where the ground appears to be frozen enough where I can drive equipment on it. So, and that's what I plan to do here. The downside to that is sort of like we see here in the corduroy road that we're working on now, is that the poles are sort of setting on the the humps of frozen mud. So it sort of looks odd. It's not settled into the road. It doesn't really look like it's doing its thing. It's not drivable. But that's the only opportunity I'm going to have if I want to bring equipment in here, say my tractor with a grapple to bring in material, or my log loading trailer, which is what I plan to do to bring in material. So I have a lot of good-sized poles over here. Basically this entire, almost all this area here, I have all kinds of probably 20 to 50-year-old fir, but they're only 4 to 6 inches in diameter. They're not going to amount to anything. They're in the way of better trees that are growing, so I'd like to take those down. So my plan, and this will be a future video, is to take that material here, sort of just set it in piles roadside, take my trailer and move it from here down to here and deposit it where I need to there, and then just place it by hand. Well, there are some sparse areas that I want to add some more poles to. You know, like where I finished off, I didn't really cover everything up. But for the purposes of this video, we're done. I measured it out as 85 feet long from where the trailer sets. In fact, that far wheel is just on the road itself, the corduroy road. To that end there. So this last load I brought around this way because obviously this was closer than walking across here. And like I've mentioned before, I don't want to dish shovel these while they're sort of loosely in place. Wait for either a hard pack of snow, you know, 10 inches or more, something like that, or for spring to come when they can settle into the mud and they won't be dislodged as easily. So this is my first attempt at a corduroy road. So if any of you more experienced folks out there have some suggestions or things I did wrong or things I should have done or things that I did that I should not have done, please leave a comment, because I do plan to do a couple other areas of corduroy road, slightly different fashion. That'll be in some upcoming videos, so I hope you will stay tuned for those. Before we close out, I'll give you a preview of where those other areas of corduroy road are, and I'll give you a time lapse of the area basically along this road that I gathered all this material. Now, a lot of the time I spent was not simply getting material for this corduroy road, but also just general cleanup, you know, cutting down junk trees. A lot of them are just not big enough to use here on the road, but I wanted to get rid of them anyhow for silviculture reasons. And that's one topic I do plan on exploring a bit more in some upcoming videos, is managing a forest and silviculture and trying to carry out the management plan that I do have on my property. So let's walk along this road. It's been snowing here constantly really for the last month. You get a couple days of break of no snow, but it's just been light flurries. You know, we don't have a lot of accumulation. So a lot of the stuff I did, like right there, is all covered with snow. Some of the more recent stuff I did yesterday and today obviously is going to be more visible. So let's take a walk. With that section of road done, let's walk around the loop. I don't know, I think I should call this the wet loop. Most of it is pretty good like this, where it's not real muddy, it packed in well, there's no mud puddles. So this area here needs some treatment, but I think it's only probably 15 or 20 feet. So you can, before I drove over it, it's about 2 inches of ice. I'm guessing it's back to 2 inches with the cold weather we've had. This section here I know is muddy. Not nearly as bad as the other areas, but this would be an area that I would treat with corduroy as well. This section here is pretty bad. Again, I sink almost up to the axles. I'm guessing the puddles are probably 18 inches deep or so. But it's just a short section. I think it's between where the ledge is closer to the ground, where we're standing here, and over there where puddles stop. This section here is by far the worst. Clearly go up to my just about my axles, probably depth wise 18 inches, maybe 20 inches. I do have a culvert here which drains this little collection area here, but it basically goes, I think, right there and into that little swale. So it's probably running now. It runs when we have rain. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. This running is not that much, but there is water down there. Unfrozen ice. So this section here, basically it abruptly stops there. Again, I'm guessing it's because of the ledge, the bedrock underneath. And all the way, this is a long section. Not quite as long as the one we just finished. I may or may not go over my culvert, I'm not sure. Up to the culvert here, it's not too bad, it's a little squishy, but that is by far the worst. So as we head back down the hill to sort of finish the loop, there's a couple isolated areas here, which is just simply a single mud hole. I think I will fill that with crushed rock. Because I'm pretty sure there's bedrock right underneath it and around it, I'm not worried about it sort of sinking in to the native soil where you would normally use road fabric. And we're back to the beginning, this area here that I cut some firewood. Hopefully you're familiar with that by now. That's the shortcut, and that's where we just came from. Well, that'll put the do it to it. I appreciate you following along with this. This was actually over the course of several weeks, just because I did a little bit here and there, had other projects that I was doing elsewhere. But I appreciate you watching this video, and I hope you stay tuned for others. We'll be doing some more cutting for different projects and for a different purpose, and we'll review some forest management and silviculture. Thanks, and hope to see you soon.